All right, welcome into SportsBit Betting Insight today, Friday, March 25th. Paulie and Teddy, big game breakdown, two Sweet 16 games, Iowa State, Virginia, and Gonzaga and Syracuse. We'll get to the big Saturday night game with the Spurs and OKC. We'll get to bad beats and wrong sides in a second. Teddy, what happened? This looked like four great games on paper, all blowouts, and the favorites got there in all four.
Yeah, I mean, last night is a classic letdown situation for the better, for the fan in us. And I'm not usually a fan. I mean, I'm pretty jaded about this stuff, but I enjoy March Madness. It's a lot of fun. Last weekend was epic. I didn't do great by any stretch of the imagination, but as a fan, you enjoyed it. Last night, blowout, 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 blowout. Four double-digit games. Bad news for the books when all four favorites hit. But as a fan, you're like, come on, man. I've been waiting all week for these games. This is what you got for me? Maybe we'll see something better tonight. Although, Paul, it is worth mentioning right here, if you missed yesterday's show, we do have two big game breakdowns of the other two games for tonight on the Thursday edition. You can go back and find those in the archives right here at SBR Forum.
When you see four favorites get there, and every month it seems in Las Vegas they're building a new tower, do you look at the underdog in the four games tonight?
No, I don't think that there's any relationship between what happened last night and what happened tonight. Or what's going to happen tonight, I shouldn't say. It hasn't happened yet. But I'm not going to start auto-betting underdogs after a single night of favorite success. Now, it's one thing in the NFL if the favorites cash like 3 weeks in a row, and it's like 11-5 to the favorites, and then 12-4 to the favorites, and then 13-3 to the favorites. By the fourth week, there really is some value on the dogs. From this, the lines haven't changed, and just because last night's games were largely non-competitive, doesn't necessarily mean that tonight's games will be largely non-competitive too.
How about a quick look at the Saturday night games? It's chalk, 1 against 2, 1 against 2. These are the world openers, the first openers. Kansas 2.5 against Villanova, and Oklahoma 1, or at some spots, pick against Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a mature market by any stretch of the imagination. Again, we tape real early to make sure that you guys have an opportunity to get a decent shelf life for this show. But the very first lines, Kansas 2.5 over Nova, Oklahoma 1 pick over Oregon. And I'm not surprised by either of those numbers, really. Are you? I mean, did either one stand out to you?
I'm a little surprised by Oklahoma because Oregon was so impressive last night destroying Duke. But
no, Oklahoma finally got to cover his chalk.
They did, yes, I know.
Last night, now instead of 3-17 ATS, their last 20 is chalk. Yeah. They're 4-17, their last 21 is chalk. But I wouldn't be surprised if that game goes off right at pick'em.
All right, time for bad bets. How about Miami and Villanova? The total went from 142.5 to 139.5. No chance. Miami shot 67% in the first half, 7 of 9 from 3, and they still were down 6 at the half. Villanova, the first team since Connecticut in 1995 to score at least 85 points in their first 3 tournament games, Teddy.
Yeah, I mean, celebrating made shots wasn't a problem for Miami, but defense sure as hell was. The first half of that game, this is a stat that, I mean, again, I look at box scores all day, every day, It's part of the process. You watch, you look at the numbers, you put things together, you read everything that you can find, and those three things, watching, reading, number crunching, are basically the essence of handicapping. I mean, A, B, or C, and when you work all three together, it's as good as you can do. So, the point being, not that I made a short story long, at halftime of this game, there were 11 combined defensive rebounds. Combined. I've never seen a total lower in all the years I've been looking at box scores. 11 defensive rebounds for the two teams in the first half. Obviously, both squads were on fire, but betting that game under the total didn't do anybody any good last night. A true shootout. And, of course, if you had the Hurricanes, you did not have a right side.
Two teams combined to shoot 58% from the floor. Highest field goal percentage combined in a Sweet 16 game since 1985. How about that? Other bad bets. A&M, of course. Duke. Maryland. It was ugly.
Yeah, they were all wrong sides. And, of course, Maryland, of those three that you mentioned, they were the only one to take money. Oregon took some money. Oklahoma took some money. Maryland took some money. So at least the money coming in on the Ducks and the Sooners was right side money. The Terps, no, Kansas was pretty good last night.
Sure were. Yes, absolutely. And plenty of bad bets in the NBA. Last night, we told you the Bulls couldn't defend Porzingis and Melo, and they went crazy. Well, today we're going to tell you that the Bulls couldn't defend Porzingis and Melo, who went crazy again. They combined for 96 points the last two games. Bulls lose again.
Yeah, and, this is now a problem for Chicago. Not that it hasn't been a problem, but when a team gets their top six rotation guys back, and then they go and lose back-to-back to the Knicks, and when the second one is every bit as bad as the first, yeah, it's a problem. We talked about Utah last night, or on this show yesterday, about last night's game at Oklahoma City. They were a wrong side against the Thunder, saying, hey, the Jazz might be a little fat and happy after rallying from 18 back against Houston. They certainly were. And what about the Cleveland Cavaliers, Paul? They were certainly a wrong side loser. Bad bet last night. What's going on with the Cavs?
Yep, the Nets finished on a 14-0 run. Lopez killed them. This will not end well in Cleveland. And LeBron, he wants the impossible. He wants to win rings, but he also wants everyone to like him. And he knows when he opens up his mouth, if he does something on Twitter, if he says something to the media, he knows it's going to be a big story, and he continues to do it. What do you think Kyrie and Love think when he tells the media, I would love to play with Melo, Wade, and CP3 and take a pay cut? And then he unfollows the Cavs on Twitter, and he makes comments. He worked out with D. Wade in Miami and put it on social media. You know that's going to cause a shitstorm, and he does it anyways. He is going to leave Cleveland. He knows they can't beat the Warriors, and you know it bothers him that Curry has become the face of the NBA, and this is carrying over in the locker room. He didn't like Blatt, they fired him. Now Lou's not working out. Embarrassing loss to the Nets.
Yeah, so how do you really feel, Paul? Because I'm a little bit, wondering about that. And I love when you save your rant for when we're in a breakdown, man. That's beautiful. Strong opinion, and I don't disagree with it. I'm not bullish on the Cavs. I've been talking about someone else is going to come out of the East besides Cleveland.
Yeah.
I continue to think that Boston may well be that team. I'm not sold on the Raptors. I'm not sold on Charlotte or any of the other teams contending near the top. Celtics, worth watching. I'll tell you a team that's not worth watching. That's the New Orleans Pelicans.
Oh,
look at this lineup that they're trotting out, with Ryan Anderson out. And I mean, basically, I think their top 5 or top 6 scorers are all now out, either short-term or for the year. They've shut down Anthony Davis, obviously. They shut down Eric Gordon. They didn't have Drew Holiday. Look at this lineup. You have Dante Cunningham, Alonzo G, Omer Asik, Alex Ajinka, Tony Douglas. Off the bench, you got Babbitt and Perkins and Frazier. That is a true D-League roster. Your classic, playing for the lottery, end of the season NBA roster. They scored 84 points in Indiana. Yeah, of course they covered, Paul. It's what they do. So, with that kind of a lineup, covering the number shows you that the NBA not always about trying to break down the personnel issues. There are certainly circumstantial and situational handicaps that need to be accepted for each game.
We got big game breakdown coming up next. 2 in the association. We finish off the 2 games in the Sweet 16. That's coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today. All right, we're back. Let's get into it. Big game breakdown. We start in the association. The Hornets on the road to take on the Pistons. Pistons laying 2. Playoff pressure now. Not always a good thing when you have a young team that's not used to it. Last time, look at this graphic. The last time the Pistons played a playoff game, April 26, 2009. Look at the roster. Rip Hamilton, Stuckey, McDyess, Prince, Wallace. And then you look at guys on the current roster that have playoff experience. Reggie Jackson, 13 playoff starts with OKC, and Steve Blake, who made the playoffs with 5 different teams and had 13 starts. I don't know if the Pistons are up to this, Teddy, if they can handle it, because they really haven't been playing well, and they needed a tip-in just to beat the Bucks at home. It's getting to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not a team that you or I trust, but it is a Pistons team that woke up the last 2 mornings sitting in the playoffs. Now they have to play a game in that position, and that obviously a different story. But there are a number of things, even though Detroit is not a team that we really trust, there are a number of things about the Pistons that stand out, that make them perhaps more trustworthy here. It's their 6th straight home game. They've been home for the last 10 days. And the Bulls aren't exactly putting the pressure on Detroit with their losing the back-to-back games against the Knicks. So, yeah, this is more pressure than the Pistons are used to playing under, but it's not this win-or-go-home pressure. And it's not the, last day of the regular season type of pressure. And it's not the Chicago's pulling away from us and we got to do something type of pressure. So it could be worse. But, here's the question. Even if the Pistons do play well, are they still going to be able to beat the Charlotte? Charlotte's playing really good basketball of late.
They've been excellent. 17-4 straight up in their last 21 games. They had the huge come-from-behind win against the Spurs. And I can't tell you what that does for their confidence, too. I mean, it was the Kemba Walker show, but now, Lynn, they're getting contributions from several guys here.
Well, that's the key with Charlotte. I mean, this is a team that has gone through more than their fair share of injuries, and they've come out the other end with a roster that is much deeper with contributors now than it was back in November and December. I mean, this wasn't a good team early on. Healthy, their bench is playing well. As you talked about, some of the guys like Lynn coming off the bench. You have Al Jefferson making an impact.
Yeah.
Charlotte, not a team that's getting talked about a whole lot. They could have home court in the first round of the NBA playoffs, and maybe we'll be talking about them a little bit more.
Hey, what's going on here? Williams and Caldwell Pope questionable, so no total?
Yeah, it's, this is one of the things that drives me nuts about late season NBA betting. And I think I'm going to save this for a rant next week, but let's just put it that way. Yeah, Marvin Williams, questionable. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, questionable. So each guy's got one questionable guy. Are either one of those guys going to move the needle on the point spread or the total? It baffles me why most books didn't hang a number or haven't hung a number yet. They will, I'm sure, later this morning. But why the books don't hang a number, and there's not a book in the world that hung a total on this game. A little bit baffling to me.
Pistons, the 8th seed in the East, see if they can hold off the Bulls and if they can make a trip to the playoffs, though a difficult schedule down the stretch. Saturday night, the Spurs at OKC. If Kawhi plays, it's a pick'em. If Kawhi sits, projected line, Oklahoma City, 2.5. Possibly a meaningless game for the Spurs. It's a mental game for OKC. Teddy, you remember this game well. They had the lead on the road in San Antonio. They fell apart. Westbrook was 5 of 16 with 9 turnovers, and they were outscored 27-17 in the fourth.
Yeah, I mean, they still got the money. San Antonio was minus 8.5, and they won the game by 8. But it was an absolute OKC meltdown in that game. And if you remember the fourth quarter when they scored only 17 points, yeah, San Antonio played good defense, no question. But OKC was completely out of their offensive flow. Their execution with the game on the line was El Stinko. I mean, no passing, tons of contested jumpers, and they kept getting the ball out of Westbrook's hands and not getting it back to him. But you can make the case that Westbrook and Durant struggled to get on track in that game because of some guy named Kawhi, and Kawhi may not play in this contest, Paul.
He's been unbelievable, especially the job he did on Durant and Westbrook in that game. But the Popovich plan looks like tonight, no Kawhi, no Green, no Mills, and then bring them all back Saturday night against OKC, Teddy.
Well, that's not necessarily going to be the case. We have Green and Mills, Danny Green and Patty Mills, both expected to sit tonight against Memphis. Everyone's sitting against Memphis now when they can. And while Green and Mills are expected to play on Saturday, Leonard's got a strained quad. And if you're Pop, you want to play a guy who's a little bit banged up, who's the key to your team right now, not a chance. I think there's a reasonable chance that Kawhi sits both ends of this back-to-back.
Okay.
This is not a meaningful game for San Antonio. It's a huge game for OKC, and it's, the Spurs, if they win, if they lose, the Thunder have at least started to win some games of late. 6-game winning streak, and they went 4-2 ATS during that span. But their last 2 winning streaks, they had a 5-gamer and a 7-gamer. They had a losing ATS mark, a combined 4-8 against the number during winning streaks. Just one part of the reason why it's been such a problem to lay points with Oklahoma City this year.
Yep. Iowa State, Virginia, and Gonzaga, Syracuse, plus the play of the day, and Teddy's got another rant in him, too. All that's coming up on SportsBit. betting insight today. All right, now we go to the Sweet 16, Iowa State and Virginia. Virginia 5-141. A battle of wills here. Iowa State 55th in pace. Virginia 351. The Virginia defense grinds you down in two ways. Not only number 4 in total defense, but 349 in forcing teams to use up shot clock. Tough to get a good shot early. This is going to be a great clash of styles here, Teddy.
It sure is. I mean, Tony Bennett's defense literally puts a stop sign to opposing offense. They do it so many different ways. I mean, so much of the Bennett basketball philosophy is set up to have the defense set. So you can't really push tempo at all against Virginia. This team is always playing defense, even when they have possession. You know, how does a coach accomplish that? First, he puts a major focus on taking care of the ball. Virginia, number 13 in the nation in turnover percentage. They don't turn the ball over. Therefore, no easy fast break buckets down on the other end. And then what he does offensively, he balances the floor. Let's say the point guard drives to the basket. Watch the two guard drift back towards midcourt and be prepared to defend. That's what they do on every possession. There's someone getting back. And the other thing that they do, they never take an unexpected shot. You know, they wind the shot clock down, and therefore everyone knows whether they need to be crashing the offensive glass or getting back on defense. So that's something that Tony Bennett has done extraordinarily well, and I've yet to see Virginia run and gun with anybody, and that may be a problem for Iowa State.
Yeah, and they love to push it. They're number 2 in total offense. They played the 10th toughest schedule, and you look at this graphic, this is shots per second, and also when you look at the offense and defense of the two teams. Iowa State on offense, number 2 in the country. Virginia on defense, number 4. Shots per second. Iowa State on offense, 20th. Virginia on defense, 349. And again, Teddy, it begs the question. I don't know, can they win a game if it's played at a slow pace?
They've won a handful of those games this year, but it's certainly not their preferred method of play. I mean, the Cyclones, this team has the talent to be in the hunt. You know, in 200 floor minutes, they played Kansas and Oklahoma, a pair of top seeds in this tournament. And in those 200 floor minutes, they won the scoreboard by 4 points. Then you look at this graphic. You know, Iowa State, when it comes to scoring, you know, obviously you have Niang at 20 points per game, but the balance is there.
Yeah.
The next 5 guys, it's only a 6-man rotation, but the next 5 guys are all averaging between, 9.5 and 14 points per game. So that balance makes them a difficult team to defend. It's not just a superstar for the Cyclones. They do have the ability to get everybody involved on offense.
Very good Iowa State team, but if you're a Virginia fan, you're going to lose your mind if they can't win this game tonight, because you get Michigan State out of the bracket, and the whole bracket is opened up for you, and you're a 5-point favorite. They're thinking Final Four with Virginia. Final game, Gonzaga and Syracuse. The Zags 4, total of 135. Boeheim with the 2-3 zone. It fools opposing teams, but also, Teddy, it can fool people in the media. Talk about what the mainstream media is getting wrong about the Boeheim zone.
Oh my God, it's hilarious. It's like they don't even watch the games. What? I like to rip the mainstream media because they probably don't watch the games. Obviously, when you're betting money on these games, you watch it pretty close. And the thing you always hear, in order to beat Jim Boeheim's zone, you need to be able to hit from threes. You need to hit the long-range shots. The whole thing that makes his 2-3 so unique is that he doesn't allow opposing teams to get open looks from the three-point lines. Yeah, most zones, I should say, are about preventing the opposition from getting the ball near the basket. You want to force them to take jump shots. Boeheim doesn't do it that way. He recruits athletic players with really long wingspans to guard the perimeter, and they're consistently among the nation's best defenses at reducing three-point accuracy. The way to beat Syracuse is not by draining a bunch or taking a bunch of three-pointers. Look at the numbers, Paul. You tell me.
Well, yeah, here's the graphic. Here's Syracuse versus three-point shooting the last 8 seasons. They were 8th, 22nd, 29th, 47th, 3rd, 173, 43, and 11. So 7 of the last 8 years in the top 50, and they really shut these guys down shooting the three.
Yeah, I mean, four of the last 8 years, they've been in the top 20
Yeah,
nationally.
yeah.
You can't hit threes against Syracuse zone. That's the whole point. And yet you hear one talking head after the next. Oh, the perimeter shooting. I don't know what these guys are watching. What's the weakness for Syracuse? Because there's a big one.
Yep.
There's a hole for the Orange in that zone. And it's not on the offensive end, or I should say, it's not necessarily on the defensive end. It has everything to do with what's going on the glass, right, Paul?
Well, we played basketball. When you play a zone, you have big issues on the boards. This season, they were 337. They were only grabbed 65% of available defensive rebounds. This is Syracuse, this graphic. Defensive rebounding the last 8 seasons. 274, 260, 211, 341, 281, 175, 179, and 337. As I mentioned, this will continue to be a big struggle because Gonzaga has Sabonis, and he's going to be a force down low, Teddy.
Yeah, and again, the numbers make it so clear. When you look at those two graphics, this is what Syracuse done. They get out on the perimeter. They don't give up threes. They got a bunch of guys with big wingspans playing 20 feet away from the hoop. At the same time, every single year, they're getting clocked on the offensive glass.
Yeah.
How do you beat them? You talk about Sabonis. What do you have, 103 offensive rebounds this year? Gonzaga is big in the paint. That may be a tough matchup for the Orange in this one.
Looking forward to that. See if we get a better result than what happened last night. And speaking of a better result, we need to catch a break here with the play of the day. Come on.
Well, I mean, what did we run? We had an 8-run the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And then this week we've just run bad all week. First, Kobe plays when he's not supposed to. Then Lowry doesn't play when he is supposed to. Then last night the Jayhawks stay under by 1 basket. What do we do when the play of the day goes south, Paul, when we're having bad luck? It's not like these selections have been dead wrong. We haven't gotten a lot of breaks. What do? Well, I'll tell you what we don't do. We don't spit. We don't swear. We're not going to freak out and call ourselves morons. We're not going to triple up on tonight's bet and change everything that we do. It's people panic and they freak out just because, all right, there's going to be ups and downs. You're going to have lucky streaks. You're going to have unlucky streaks. Little edges over time do pay off. That's what we're looking to give you on this show for the play of the day. This is a little edge that I think is going to pay off tonight. Let's look at the Virginia Cavaliers minus the 5 against Iowa State. Just the kind of matchup that feels like the defense is going to control the flow a little bit more than the offense. I know I lost betting against Iowa State, against Arkansas Little Rock. That was a dumb play. I don't think this one is quite so dumb. Take the Cavs minus the 5. And best of luck on Friday night.
Yes, beauty. Another fun week. Thanks for the uptick on the views. Let's keep it going. Tell your friends. And we're back Monday on SportsBit. Paulie and Teddy. Betting Insight today.